AITA for letting karma ruin my ex's wedding to my best friend? There are people who confuse stability with mediocrity, and when they realize their mistake, they have already lost everything that mattered. This is the story of a man who built a business with his own bare hands from a workshop in the Maryvale neighborhood of Phoenix, and of the woman who threw him away because his ambition did not make enough noise. What she never understood is that quiet success is the most dangerous kind, because when it explodes, no one sees it coming. While she and her new guy were building a castle of smoke, the man they despised was cementing something that no drunken wedding speech could tear down. The envelope was sitting right there on the dining room table with my name written in that cursive handwriting I knew by heart. I did not even have to open it to know what it said. I had been waiting for it for weeks, like someone waiting for the confirmation of a diagnosis they already know. I opened it slowly. 2 lines, clean, surgical, without tear stains, because Brooke was never the type to cry. I need space to grow. It is not your fault. It is just that I want more. More. That word haunted me for months, not because I did not understand it, but because I understood it too well. For Brooke, more never meant love, or depth, or building something together. More meant visible money, contacts to show off, a life that looked good on Instagram. And I, Marcus Hayes, an industrial refrigeration technician with my own workshop in the Maryvale neighborhood of Phoenix, was not enough more. But that came later. Let me go back to the beginning, or rather, to the exact moment when everything started to rot without my knowledge. It was a Friday in July, one of those days in Phoenix that make you feel like you are living inside a griddle, 107 degrees in the shade. I was just getting back from a job in Scottsdale. I had installed the entire refrigeration system for a new Japanese restaurant. One of those fancy places with an English menu and waiters who explain every dish to you like it is a college lecture. I arrived at the workshop drenched in sweat, my hands black with grease, and the first thing I saw was Tyler's truck parked outside my house. Tyler Crawford, my buddy since vocational high school. We had grown up together in Maryvale, 2 kids busting our backs among tools and cables. He went the electrical route, residential installations, wiring, solar panels. I went into industrial refrigeration and air conditioning. We complemented each other perfectly. I passed him clients who needed electrical work. He sent me the ones who needed climate control. Fridays with grilled steaks on my patio, Sundays watching football at the sports bar, vacations together at the lake. He was my brother, the best man I had already set aside for my wedding. When I walked in, Brooke and he were in the living room talking. Nothing weird. Tyler came by often, sometimes looking for me, sometimes because he was in the area, but something felt different that afternoon. I do not know how to explain it. It was like when you arrive at a construction site and smell burnt wire before you see it. Something invisible, but it puts you on high alert. "You are early," Brooke said. And in her voice, there was something that was not exactly surprise. It was more like an interruption. "The second job got canceled." "What is up, Ty?" "Nothing, bro. I stopped by to see if you were down for some beers, but your lady kept me busy with her Scottsdale event project." Brooke worked organizing corporate events, weddings for businessmen, Christmas dinners for law firms, restaurant grand openings in Scottsdale. She did well. She charged between $4,000 and $7,500 per event, depending on the size. She was good at what she did, I will not deny it. She had that gift of making everything look more expensive than it really was. That night, after Tyler left, we were eating some steak sandwiches I bought from Lou's food truck, the best in the whole neighborhood, if you ask me. And Brooke dropped one of those sentences that seem like a casual comment, but carry dynamite inside. Tyler was telling me about how he is scaling his business. He already brought in 2 engineers and is quoting projects for industrial warehouses in Tolleson. It is impressive how he thinks big. I chewed slowly. Good for him. Have you not thought about something like that? I mean, you have had the workshop for years and it is stable, but would you not like to take the next step? What next step? I do not know. Expand, look for bigger contracts, bring in more people. Tyler says the industrial market is growing a lot in the metropolitan area. Tyler says, I did not give it any importance that night. I should have. I had built my workshop from scratch, literally. At 19, I started as a helper with Earl Whitaker, an old master refrigeration tech who had his little shop in Central Phoenix. He paid me $500 a week and taught me everything the vocational school did not teach me. When Earl got kidney sickness and had to stop working, He sold me his equipment, compressor, manifold, tools, and his rusty truck for $2,200 that I scraped together with a loan from my mom and 3 months of tight savings. That was 8 years ago. Today I have 6 technicians on the payroll. 2 trucks with the Hayes Industrial Climate logo that my nephew designed for $25 and a 6-pack of beer, plus fixed contracts with 3 strip malls, a private hospital, and a restaurant chain. I invoice over $10,000 a month. It is not enough to buy an apartment in North Scottsdale, but for a kid from Maryvale who started out carrying refrigerant gas tanks, it is not bad at all. The problem was that Brooke did not see that. She saw the businessmen from Scottsdale she worked with at her events, the ones with BMWs, the ones in suits, the ones who talked about venture capital and ROI, as if they were normal words. And she compared me, and I always lost that comparison, because in her scale of values, a man with oil-stained hands was never going to measure up to one with clean hands and a platinum card. The comments piled up like drops you do not notice until you are already soaked. At a dinner with her friends from the event industry, all made up like a photo shoot, all talking about Sedona and their entrepreneurial boyfriends, someone asked me what I did for a living. He is a refrigeration technician, Brooke answered before I could open my mouth. And the way she said it, with that little condescending smile, lowering her voice a bit like someone apologizing for bringing the dog to the party, it stung me more than any direct insult. He has his own company, she added later, as if trying to patch the damage. He does well for that trade. For that trade. As if there were worthy trades and second-class trades. That night in the car on the way back, I told her it had bothered me. Oh, Marcus, do not be dramatic. Nobody was looking down on you. It is just that they are different environments, and you have to understand that people of that level have other references. Of that level. Do not start. I did not start, but I did not forget either. That night, I stayed awake until 3 in the morning. Brooke was sleeping next to me with the tranquility of someone who has nothing to hide, or who hides it so well that it does not even keep them up anymore. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about my dad, Arthur Hayes, a welder by trade, who woke up at 5 in the morning for 40 years to go to the manufacturing plant near the airport. He never made more than $15,000 a month. He never had a brand new car, nor traveled abroad, but he raised my 3 brothers and me with a dignity that no Scottsdale businessman could buy. When I was 12 years old, a neighbor asked him why he did not look for something better. My dad wiped his hands with a red rag he always carried in his back pocket and told him, "Better to stay put, buddy. My kids eat 3 times a day. My wife does not work if she does not want to, and my house is paid off. If that is not enough, then the problem is not my job. It is your definition of enough." That phrase stayed with me my whole life. And now, lying in the dark, I understood that Brooke had a definition of enough that I was never going to be able to fulfill. Not because I lacked something, but because she had a hole inside that no amount of external ambition was going to fill. The following weeks I tried to reconnect us. I organized a trip to Sedona on a Sunday. Hiking, natural pools, brisket sandwiches on the way back. She agreed, but spent half the trip on her phone. I suggested we go together to a concert by our favorite band at the Footprint Center, because when we met she loved that band. "I am not into that vibe anymore," she told me. "Let us go to the brunch the girls from the industry are organizing instead." The brunch. Another space where I was the outsider, the technician among marketers, the one with calloused hands among people with manicures. One of those Sundays, after brunch at a Scottsdale restaurant where an orange juice cost $6. $6 for an orange juice, brother. Brooke told me something that made me realize we were no longer a couple. We were just momentum. "Do you not get tired of always being the same, Marcus?" The same? How am I the same? Same workshop, same employees, same job sites. Do you not get curious to see what is beyond? Beyond what? Beyond this. And with that, she vaguely pointed at everything. My truck parked outside with the Hayes Industrial Climate logo, my polo shirt with grease stains that did not come out in the wash, my entire life summed up in a wave of her hand. Autumn arrived, and with it 2 things. The high season for my business in Phoenix. Air conditioning is not a luxury, it is survival, and Tyler's transformation into Brooke's favorite topic. Every dinner was an infomercial for my buddy's entrepreneurial exploits. How Tyler was negotiating a contract with a construction company in North Phoenix. How Tyler had hired a community manager for his social media, how Tyler was taking a business diploma at the community college. And how do you know all that? I asked her one night. He tells me when he comes over. I mean, he is your friend. Do you not like him? It is interesting talking to someone who has that growth mindset. And I do not have a growth mindset. You have a maintenance mindset, Marcus. And it is not a bad thing. Someone has to keep things running, but it is not the same as building something new. Maintenance mindset. The phrase stuck in me like a splinter under the fingernail, because in my head, I was indeed building. I had just signed a $9,000 contract with a boutique hotel in the downtown Phoenix Arts District, the biggest project of my career up to that point. I was training my team on VRF systems, the most advanced technology on the market. I had clients who recommended me without me even asking, but none of that counted because it did not come wrapped in a TED Talk speech. The moment that changed everything was a Saturday in November. Brooke said she had a meeting with an audio vendor for an event the following weekend. On a Saturday? I asked. It is the only day the sound engineer is available. You know how this is. I stayed at the workshop finishing a quote for the expansion of the climate control system at a local shopping plaza. Around 4 in the afternoon, I realized I had left some measurements I needed at the house. I went quickly. The house was empty as expected, but on the dining room table there was a Circle K receipt, coffee, and a pack of cookies with the time printed on it. 2:47 in the afternoon. The store was on the corner of the street where Tyler has his materials warehouse in the industrial area on the other side of the city, 40 minutes away from any event hall. I sat in the kitchen with that receipt between my fingers and felt something break inside. It was not a dramatic snap like in the movies. It was more like when a pipe fractures internally. On the outside, everything looks normal, but on the inside, the damage is already irreversible. I did not say anything that night when she arrived. I let her tell me her story about the sound engineer and the audio tests. I let her lie to me with that fluency that only someone who has been practicing for a while possesses. And I started to observe. Over the next 6 weeks, the pattern became so clear that I was ashamed of not having seen it earlier. The last-minute meetings that always happened when Tyler was supposedly busy with his projects. The calls Brooke answered in a low voice and hung up when I walked into the room. The messages she deleted from her phone. Yes, I checked, and I am not proud of it. But when you suspect something like that, dignity takes a back seat. One Thursday, my technician Jake told me he had seen Brooke's SUV, a gray Honda CR-V that we had bought together with the monthly payments that I covered, parked behind Tyler's warehouse when he went to pick up some material. Maybe she went to look for something, Jake said, trying to be kind. Sure, I replied, but I was not sure of anything anymore. What ate at me the most was not the betrayal itself, it was the intellectual betrayal, if that makes sense. Brooke was not just involved with another man. She was involved with the man she considered my upgraded version. Tyler was me, but with vision, me, but ambitious, me, but with the ability to dream big that I supposedly lacked. And Tyler, my buddy, my brother, was betraying me while asking to borrow my heat gun and inviting me for beers on Fridays like it was nothing. There is a type of rage that does not make you scream or break things. It makes you think with an icy clarity, as if someone had turned on all the light bulbs in your brain at the same time. That was my rage. I was not going to confront them. I was not going to make a scene. I was going to let things run their natural course, because I knew something they did not. The difference between faking success and actually having it. December in Phoenix is holiday party season, and Brooke was up to her neck in events. She arrived late, left early. We lived like roommates sharing a bed. One night, sitting in the living room, she checking her laptop, me reading a technical manual, she said the words she had been chewing on for months. Marcus, we need to talk. I closed the manual. Tell me. I have been thinking a lot about us, about what I want for my future, and I think we are no longer on the same path. Her voice trembled, but not from sadness, from nerves, like when you rehearse a speech in front of the mirror and the moment comes to deliver it in public. What do you mean? You are a good man, Marcus, hardworking, honest, stable, but I need someone who wants more, who is hungry to grow, to conquer, to reach another level. And you are comfortable where you are. And where is it that I am? In your workshop, with your 6 employees, doing the same thing year after year. I stayed quiet for a moment, not because it hurt. By this point, I had already processed the loss weeks ago. I stayed quiet because I wanted to engrave in my memory exactly what it sounded like when someone justified a betrayal with a motivational speech. You are right, I told her. If we are not on the same path, it is best that we each go our own way. The surprise on her face was genuine. She expected crying, begging, a fight where she could feel like the necessary villain in a tragic story. Instead, I gave her exactly what she wanted, a clean exit. She packed her things in 3 days, efficient as always. She took the Italian coffee maker I had given her and left the old blender, a perfect metaphor for how she viewed our relationship. She kept what looked elegant and discarded the functional. I hope we find what we are looking for, she said at the door with her last box. I already found it, I answered. But good luck to you. She did not understand what I meant. Not yet. The first night alone in the house was strange, not sad, strange, like when you turn off a machine that had been making noise for months, and suddenly the silence is so deep your ears ring. I poured myself a coffee, sat on the couch where she used to read her wedding magazines, and allowed myself to feel pain. A little, mostly the nostalgic kind. I missed the version of Brooke that existed the first few months, the one who laughed at my bad jokes and brought me sandwiches to the workshop whenever she felt like it. That Brooke had left long before her body walked out the door. Rage, no more. The rage had transformed into something more useful. Determination. The cold determination to prove, not to her, but to myself, that the life I had chosen to build was exactly the life worth living. That week, Tyler had the nerve to call me. Hey bro, I heard you and Brooke broke up. Are you okay? If you need anything, I am here. I am here. The man who had been involved with my girlfriend in his materials warehouse for months was offering me emotional support. The hypocrisy was at an almost artistic level. I am fine, Ty. Thanks for asking. Sure. If you want to grab some beers and talk. I am really swamped with work right now. I will look for you later. I hung up and laughed to myself. Not out of joy, out of amazement. At the infinite capacity, some people have to look in the mirror and not recognize the liars staring back at them. 2 months later, Brooke and Tyler made public what half of Phoenix already knew. Photos on Instagram, dinners in Scottsdale, stories together with heart filters. The official narrative was they had reconnected as friends after their respective breakups, and love had arisen naturally. Naturally, as if nature included lying for months and planning a double life in the electrical materials warehouse. But I was not looking at their social media. I was too busy. The contract for the boutique hotel in the downtown arts district came out flawless. The owner, a retired investor who had fallen in love with Phoenix, was so happy that he recommended me to 3 other investors who were renovating historic buildings downtown. In 6 months, I closed contracts for over $60,000. I bought a 3rd truck, hired for more technicians. I invested in international certifications for my team. And then the contract came. A chain of Japanese restaurants wanted me to design and install the complete refrigeration and climate control system for 5 new branches in the metropolitan area. Total value $190,000. The biggest project I had handled in my life. Meanwhile, through the contractor network, which is gossiper than a Sunday market, I found out that things were going differently for Tyler. He had grown too fast, taking on big contracts without having the capacity to fulfill them. He started using cheap materials to maintain margins. His electrical installations failed. 2 construction companies had filed lawsuits against him for defective work. A short circuit in a commercial space in North Phoenix nearly caused a fire. Ambition without competence is like a car without brakes going down a steep hill. It looks impressive for a few seconds until it crashes. And Brooke, obsessed with planning her own dream wedding, had stopped taking care of her event clients. She canceled 2 important contracts. She lost the account of a law firm that paid her $4,500 for their year-end dinner. In the corporate event world in Phoenix, losing a client's trust is losing them forever. The wedding was in February, at a hall in the Phoenix Mountain Preserve foothills overlooking the mountains, the kind of place that charges $10,000 just for the space. 200 guests, imported flowers, a 5-course menu, a photographer with a drone. Brooke planned every detail as if her career depended on it, and in a way it did. This wedding was her cover letter, her living portfolio. I was not there obviously, but my cousin Evan, who is an electrician and works with an event lighting company, was there and told me everything with the detail of someone who knows they are witnessing history. The ceremony was flawless. The problem started at the reception. Tyler, who has never known how to handle alcohol, drank half a bottle of whiskey before the toast. And when he grabbed the microphone to give his groom's speech, what came out of his mouth was an involuntary confession. Brooke and I found each other at a time when we both needed someone who understood us. There were months of talks in my office, of sharing dreams, of realizing we had the same vision of the future. Months of talks in his office, while she was still living with me and telling me she was going to meetings with vendors. My cousin says the hall grew quiet as Tyler kept talking, revealing dates and moments that did not match the official story. He mentioned a dinner in December, our first real dinner together, which was exactly the week Brooke was still sleeping in my bed. The murmurs started at the tables in the back and spread like a ripple in a pond. People were doing the math. Those who knew me, and there were several, connected the dots. Brooke, from the main table, tried to smile while her brand new husband demolished her reputation sentence by sentence. By the end of the night, the fairy tale had turned into the juiciest gossip of the wedding season in Phoenix. But the damage did not stay in the hall. In the weeks that followed, the story spread through all the circles we shared. The contractors, the event organizers, the mutual friends, everyone now had the complete version of what had happened. And in a city like Phoenix, where business is done just as much in the office as at the Sunday barbecue, reputation is everything. A mutual friend, Jenna, who worked at an advertising agency, sent me a message a few days later. "Marcus, I do not know if you care, but I wanted you to know that at my agency's Christmas dinner someone mentioned Brooke as an option to organize next year's event, and my boss said, 'The one who cheated on the refrigeration guy? No thanks.' If that is how she handles her relationships, imagine how she handles contracts." It hurt to read it, not for Brooke, but for the confirmation of something I always knew. In the business world, your word and your character are your most important capital, and they had burned theirs in a drunken wedding speech. Tyler, for his part, began losing contracts like water through his fingers. The builders who had tolerated his mediocre installations now had the perfect excuse to cross him off their vendor lists. Nobody wants to work with someone who not only does bad work, but is also capable of betraying his best friend. If you did that to your buddy, what are you going to do to a client when things get tough? 6 months after the wedding, I was having dinner at a steakhouse downtown that I love, incredible ribeye, with Paige. We had met 3 months earlier at a construction expo where she had a booth for her sustainable materials company. Civil engineer, partner in her own environmental consulting firm, marathon runner, with a laugh that made you feel like everything was going to be all right. The first time I saw her, she was explaining the advantages of ecological thermal insulation to an architect with a passion that reminded me of myself when I talk about refrigeration systems. That was the sign. Someone who loves what they do with that intensity understands what it means to build something from scratch. Our first date was at a local food truck in the South Phoenix area, nothing fancy, no games. And we talked until Chuck closed up the joint at 1 a.m. I told her about my workshop, my technicians, how I felt when I delivered a perfect climate system. And she did not say, "Oh, how interesting for that trade." She said, "Hey, can you explain to me how a VRF system works? It sounds fascinating." And she meant it. Paige was everything Brooke pretended to be, successful on her own merit, no need to show off, with the confidence of someone who knows exactly who she is and does not need anyone to validate it. We were celebrating that my contract with the Japanese restaurant chain had been expanded. 3 more branches, $80,000 extra dollars, when I saw her approaching between the tables. Brooke, but not the Brooke I knew. This was a faded version, like a photo you left out in the sun too long. Too skinny, with damaged hair and a blouse I recognized from 2 years ago. Red eyes, like someone who has not slept well or has been crying for days. "Marcus." Paige looked up from her glass of red wine. She did not say anything, just watched. "Brooke," I answered. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you. Please, just 5 minutes. I am eating dinner." I know. But it is important. Tyler left me. He ran off with one of his employees 2 months ago. He left me with the wedding debt. I still owe $4,000 to the florist and the venue. I lost the apartment we were renting in North Phoenix. My business went down the drain because I spent everything on that stupid wedding. I am living with my mom in Glendale, working as a waitress at Denny's. Glendale, Denny's. The Brooke who organized dinners in Scottsdale and judged people by their trades was now living in a modest situation and serving combo meals. The irony was so thick you could almost chew it. "I am sorry to hear that," I said. And it was true. I did not wish her harm, but I was not going to pretend I cared more than I actually did. I made the worst mistake of my life, Marcus. You were everything I needed, and I was too blind to see it. Too stupid. Paige took a calm sip of her wine. Brooke noticed her for the first time. She evaluated her. The simple but expensive dress, the discreet watch, the posture of someone who does not need to impress anyone. And something broke in her expression. "Who is she?" "This is Paige, my girlfriend." Brooke processed the information like someone taking a hit in slow motion. She looked at Paige, looked at me, looked at Paige again. "Are you serious? You already replaced me." "Brooke," Paige said with a calmness that only comes from the absolute certainty of your place in the world. "I did not replace anyone. I arrived when the space was available, which is more than what you did, as I understand it." The color rose to Brooke's face like mercury in a thermometer. "You know nothing about my relationship with Marcus." "I know enough. And I also know we are in the middle of a dinner, and you are interrupting." "Marcus, are you going to let her talk to me like that?" I looked at her. I really looked at her, and I felt no hate, no resentment, not even satisfaction. I felt something worse. Indifference. "Brooke, you left me because I was not ambitious enough. You left with Tyler because he did dream big. And how did it go with those big dreams? That is not fair." "You know what? It was not fair that my buddy and my girlfriend made a fool of me for months while I opened the door to my house to them and served them grilled steaks on Fridays." The silence in our corner of the restaurant had spread to the neighboring tables. Brooke felt it. The attention, the stares, and something in her snapped. "You ruined us," she said, her voice trembling. "You said things to the contractors so they would not give Tyler work." Tyler ruined himself. When you do electrical installations with substandard material and nearly cause a fire in a commercial space, you do not need anyone to talk badly about you. The facts speak for themselves. Everything was better before. Before what? Before you left, Brooke? Since you left, my company has tripled in size. I have 10 employees, million-dollar contracts, and a woman who values me for who I am, not for what she wishes I was. A friend of Brooke's, I did not recognize her, appeared out of nowhere and grabbed her by the arm. "Brooke, let us go? Do not do this here. I am not finished." "Yes, you are finished," Paige said without raising her voice. "A long time ago." From the door of the restaurant, Brooke turned back one last time. She did not say anything. She had nothing to say. Paige poked her skirt steak with her fork. "So she is the one who said you were not ambitious." "That is the one. Interesting definition of ambition she has." We finished our dinner peacefully. I left a $10 extra tip because the waiter acted like a professional throughout the entire spectacle. Tyler's call came 3 weeks later. A Tuesday at 7 in the morning, when I was checking the refrigerant inventory for the week. "Marcus, it is Tyler." I had not heard his voice in over a year. He sounded like someone who had the wind knocked out of him. "What do you want?" "I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know, but I am in a very difficult situation. I lost the company. My ex-wife, the new one, right, Brooke, took my last dollar in the divorce settlement. I am working as an employee in a maintenance company for $1,000 every 2 weeks. $1,000 every 2 weeks. The man who was going to build an electrical empire, making the same as a freshly graduated technician. I thought maybe you had some refrigeration job that needed electrical support. I am not asking you to hire me, just an opportunity." I stayed quiet for a few seconds. Outside, my technicians were loading the trucks for the day's jobs. I could hear Jake and Chris busting each other's chops while they checked the equipment, my company, what I built while he and Brooke were playing at being ambitious. "I cannot help you, Tyler." "Marcus, please. It is not out of resentment. It is because trusting you would be a risk I cannot afford to take. My clients trust me, and I cannot bring in someone I do not trust. I have changed. Maybe, but that is no longer my problem." I hung up and went to work. Almost 2 years have passed since that letter on the dining room table. Today I run the most recognized industrial refrigeration company in the Phoenix metropolitan area. We closed last year with billing over $300,000. I have 14 certified technicians, 4 equipped trucks, and a new office in the Arcadia neighborhood that still gives me a bit of vertigo every time I walk in. Paige and I got married in October, a ceremony at a ranch near Sedona overlooking the Red Rocks. 40 people, brisket barbecue, a local band, and a 3-milk cake made by Paige's mom, as God intended. There were no drunken speeches revealing betrayals. There were no ex-girlfriends appearing like ghosts. Just two people who chose each other with their eyes open. Sometimes, when I am at a job site supervising an installation, I remember what Brooke told me that night. You have a maintenance mindset. And I smile, because she was right, but not in the way she thought. I maintain my promises, I maintain my integrity, I maintain my word, I maintain my team, I maintain my marriage. And it turns out that maintaining the important things is much harder and much more valuable than chasing the ones that shine. Last week, Paige and I were eating breakfast sandwiches in the kitchen of our new house, a little house in the Awatuki neighborhood that we bought together. Nothing ostentatious, but ours. And she asked me if I ever thought about Brooke. Sometimes, I told her, not with sadness, more like when you remember a mistake that taught you something important. And what did it teach you? That a person's worth is not defined by who admires them, but by who stays when there is nothing to admire. You stayed when I was just a guy with a workshop and dirty hands. Those dirty hands built all of this, Paige said, pointing at the kitchen, the house, our life. I did not stay despite that. I stayed because of that. That morning, while driving to the workshop with the Phoenix sun hitting my face and the radio tuned to a local station, I thought of something my dad told me before he died. My son, those who talk a lot about what they are going to do generally do nothing. Those who do not need to talk. Success is not a spectacle, it is a trade, and those who confuse ambition with noise always end up in silence. Comment. Hey there, thanks for sticking around until the end of this one. I wanted to share my thoughts on this story because it really made me reflect. Holding on to your self-respect matters more than anything when people question your path. Setting firm boundaries unapologetically protects the life you are building. True healing begins the moment you decide to stop waiting for someone else's approval. Taking responsibility for your choices, even the hard ones, builds a foundation no one can shake. Choosing kindness toward yourself after betrayal opens up space for better connections. Learning to value quiet stability over flashy promises has shifted how I view real success. If you're navigating something tough right now, remember that picking peace is one of the strongest decisions you can make. I hope these thoughts encourage you to keep moving forward with your head held high. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.